Hi, and welcome to the first week of class, The Minister's Life and Calling. I'm Russell West. I'll be in conversation with you over these next few weeks. Let me just give you a little bit of orientation as to where we're going. This class is about your life and your calling. Let me just think about calling for a moment. I think it was in the first few weeks of my first pastorate, associate pastorate at a little church in Norfolk, Virginia, that it became clear to me, there go the weekends, the rest of my life. Now, I'm being a little playful there, but some of you know exactly what I just referred to. Right in the center of my calling comes the dilemmas of how I'm going to work this stuff out in my life. And I was playfully saying that, if the minister's main day of the week is Sunday, there goes the weekends for many over their career. And that's part of the lifestyle, that's part of the sacrifice, if you will, when the weekends in my culture tend to be reserved for recreation and leisure. So I'm playing on a theme there to convey to you that I want our conversation to happen at the level of where we live, down in the seat of our being, where we emote our lives, the things that move us, the things that explain us, the things that we sometimes use to excuse us. I want to host a conversation about how life and calling gets worked out in the dilemmas, in the place between the keys, to think of a piano metaphor, where the real jazz happens, the real dissonance occurs. And the way I've framed our conversation is one around the substance of things and the shadows of things, and how there may be a seductive tendency inside of the faith and in our age to settle for the cosmetics, to settle for convenient approaches. And what I've sought to put together in our conversation are some stress test questions for us. Questions that the faith from the ages raises for us. The way leadership gets embodied and contextualized inside of a culture. I have tried to host a conversation that will interrogate our sleepiness around leadership, around fidelity, around calling, and around our lives. So that will be my approach, is to host a conversation which in the end will result in you having a few spiritual friends, that you've practiced a way of conversation that honors that you've got some clear priorities. I call that your heart. And that you have a definite posture. People can pick up on the way you lean on things. That you have some practices that you have came to the dance floor with, and some that you're going to pick up and leave that you didn't start with. So we want to look at our practices. Are they congruent with what we are trying to do in our priorities and in our postures, what we're trying to express? And then our projects. Everybody I know has some grand thing that they would like to get done, even if it's fantasy or a daydream. One day I'd like to live at a lake, or one day I'd love to see 1 million children fed. I hear folks talk about their lives, not necessarily with grandiosity, which could be an indication of some shadowy sorts of things, but with an expectation that there's greatness in their bosom, that something's planted there that is working its way out into fruition. This is that John 15 sort of promise that when we abide, fruit's going to come. Something is trying to emerge in our lives. That's the grand project. When we make sense of our calling, our big project, it will interrogate our priorities constantly. You ready to go up your weekends? Those priorities will shape how you live and what you take in, how you learn, eventually how you lean, which side of the issues you come down on, where you stand in your body, what you stand for, the way you work out an incarnational theology in the now and the near. And those practices that get you there, those are those rules of life, the trellis on which you build a life, the structures, those things you value that you make sure you have embodied if you say you value them. And of course, You do that with congruence to the project you're trying to advance. Are you getting the idea of this circle that's going to be going around and around in our conversation? Let's make a few spiritual friends around these themes. I've set up the first week or so of the class for you to get down into the content without having to do a lot of reading in the first week. So I have a lot of video content and materials that's sort of familiar, like Pilgrim's Progress, something that's a classic that once you get the rhythm of it, you can move through it quickly. So the first couple of weeks are fairly light. This is when you should be bulking up on the books, which start showing up in the second and the third weeks. That's what the design is. If you miss the opportunity that's built into it, I've already given you the grace that many of you sometimes request of professors at the end of a semester. And by the way, professors aren't dispensers of grace. They want you to have the grace to accept what you have been earning, what you've been working for, your values, your priorities. So we'll have a developmental conversation if at the end you're asking me for grace. I'll be asking you to make sense of the work ethic and the investments that you've made along the way. But that's the conversation we're going to have. I host every class I'm in from the perspective of a mentor and of a friend and a partner, co-learner. So I can't wait to learn from you. See you in the classroom.